Right now we're joined by Albert Breer, NFL reporter for the MMQB.com. Does a lot of TV out there in the Boston area as well. And Albert is with us here on Tiki and Tierney. Albert, how you been, buddy? What's happening?
I'm good. What's going on?
All good. Listen, we're going to, obviously with Revis, the police blotter is going to take care of itself, and who the hell knows what really happened, But say that this incident did not happen. Listen, I don't think there's any doubt the Jets are looking to move on from him, but if there wasn't something legal hanging over his head, would there have been even a modicum of interest for him to play corner next season for other teams around the NFL?
Then the question really comes down to his commitment now, and that's what everybody would have to be sold on. I know the Jets have come to a point of frustration with him where, I think that they felt like last year to some degree he was collecting a check and wasn't the same sort of driving force that he had been in the past.
Oh, it was terrible.
I know, and here's but it goes beyond that. It goes beyond just not being a great player anymore. It goes, to what do you have to do now that your physical ability isn't what it once was to become a very good player, and to remake yourself as you move into your 30s. And look, there are guys in the past who we've asked those questions with and have made it work. Charles Woodson's a great example of it. He completely remade who he was, and he extended his career, until he was damn near 40 years old, because he was willing to go and learn a new position and change who he was as a player because, he wasn't the freak athlete that he had been in his 20s, and so I think that that's a huge part of it, is that not only, would the Jets were looking to move on from him, but not only would Darrelle Revis have been, facing the question, what does he have left in the tank? He'd also be facing the question, how motivated is he to remake himself as a player? And whether that's at safety or corner, how willing is he to change his game to accommodate, some of the declining physical skills that he has now? And I think that's an open question. And no matter how this resolves itself, when he, if he's looking to continue playing football, it's a question he's going to have to answer.
What do we think the league belief is in his ability to play, and does this issue, this fight or whatever we want to call this thing in Pittsburgh, how's that going to affect it? Because he's 31 years old; he's not a young man anymore.
Yeah, well, it doesn't help. It certainly doesn't help. Like the idea that, and here's the thing, and I think you guys both know this, right? Like. Second chances in the NFL are a function of talent. So if this was Darrelle Revis of 2011 or 2014, let alone the guy who was dominant in 2009 and 2010, we'd be talking about something else. And this would be, all right, you got to go let him go through the process, and maybe he has to, serve a suspension later on, but he's so good that he's absolutely going to get a shot somewhere. Now, teams have to ask the question, is it worth it? And so I think that's the biggest question now is it worth the trouble to bring the guy on your roster if he's dealing with this? And the Jets are in a tricky situation too, because the Jets now have to look at it and say, if we cut him, we're going to swallow that $6 million that we owe him, the fully guaranteed portion of his 2017 money. And we can't get that back. Whereas if we wait, and let this play out a little bit, we may be off the hook for that $6 million.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of moving parts here. And again, I think a big part of this, other teams in the league look at him and say, and I've talked to other teams about this. Does he have the ability to play safety? Yeah, he's a smart player. He understands football. He's big. He's got the ability to be physical. We've seen that from him in the past, even though you didn't see it last year. So does he have the ability to switch to safety and extend his career for another 5 years? Absolutely he does. But it takes a lot of work to get there. And so the question is, after what we saw last year, is he willing to put in that work? And, that remains an open question in my mind.
Yeah, I know which way I'm leaning. I would lean toward no. But out of respect to, his prowess when he was in his prime, and his acumen.
Look, I think he was playing that position at about as high a level as you could possibly play.
No
right?
doubt. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. One of the best of all time.
Yep.
Albert Breer with us. Of course, Albert, reporter, NFL, the MMQB.com. All right, so the Garoppolo stuff, and you're right in the backyard for this. You can tell us exactly what's happening, what he's thinking, and what you think the Pats are thinking. But then we also want to get into it and gauge the expectation for A.J. McCarron on the open market, maybe versus Garoppolo. But first, what are the Pats inclined to try to keep him and make this happen? What do you think they're thinking right now?
Yeah, and I know it's been out there. My boss Peter has mentioned it, and I know Ed Werder mentioned the Patriots would be inclined to keep him, and I think that they like him enough where if there wasn't a great offer out there for him, they're not going to trade him just to trade him, right? I think what's going to make this happen, what's going to push this thing over the goal line, and why I think he'll be playing somewhere else in 2017. I think the market's going to be there, and all you got to look at is the market last year for quarterbacks, right? Brock Osweiler gets $18 million, Sam Bradford gets $18 million. We heard in January and February how there's no Mariota or Winston in last year's draft class. Lo and behold, Jared Goff and Carson Wentz not only go number one, but the Rams and the Eagles trade the farm to go up and get them. Then Teddy Bridgewater gets hurt, and the Vikings flip a first-round pick for Sam Bradford. So, you look at that, the exploding value at that position, and it's hard for me to imagine that with this being competitive and teams like Chicago and Cleveland and San Francisco and even like a Houston or a New Orleans potentially being in the mix for Garoppolo, teams that liked him 3 years ago when he was coming out, I'd imagine that that's going to drive this market into the stratosphere. And my sense is right now, on whatever today is, February 17th, that there's going to be an offer on the table that's going to be too much for the Patriots to pass up, and that's why I think they'll wind up moving.
How viable of an alternative is A.J. McCarron?
I'd kind of put it in the category of like A.J. Feely 10 years ago, where I'm not.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm not sold he is, but I'm not sold he isn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, he did a lot of great things at Alabama, and there were people who liked. Now, remember, when he came out, he had a screwed up shoulder, right? So there were a lot of people that I talked to with teams that thought that he should have gone a lot higher in the draft than he did, and he went in the fifth round. He's a competent kid. He's won at a very high level at Alabama, about as high a level as you can be at in the college game, and so there are things there you like. Plus, he played a little bit, and he played in a high pressure situation at the end of the 2015 season in Cincinnati. And so I could certainly see a team saying, you know what, this is worth throwing a dart at. Like the same way like the Seahawks were throwing darts before they found Russell Wilson, right? They threw a dart to try and see maybe Charlie Whitehurst works out, maybe Matt Flynn works out. And so I don't think anybody's going to sell out to go and get A.J. McCarron. But there could be a team out there that says to themselves, okay, we don't like this draft class as far as the quarterbacks go. And, we don't want to sell out for the wrong guy in free agency. So let's just throw a second or a third round pick the Bengals' way, get this guy on our roster. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. It's worth rolling the dice because that's the most important position. So that's sort of how I see him, if that makes sense.
It does, no doubt. Albert Breer with us at the NFL, the MMQB.com. Tyrod Taylor, how's he factor into this mess?
I would have told you a month ago that he was going to be somewhere else, and I think he'd be a great answer for, a team like the Jets or a team like maybe Chicago, where you're looking for somebody who could hold you over for a couple of years. You can kind of tread water at that position for a couple of years if you're not wild about what's coming out in this year's draft. But then Rick Dennison got the job in Buffalo, and so I think the Bills are going to, at the very least, take a hard look at keeping him.
Albert, it seems like he's the one who wants out. Like he's a little scorned. That's the way it seems.
Yeah,
at least,
but they still
right?
have him under contract. That's the thing, and he played for Rick Dennison in Baltimore.
Yep.
And when you're hiring a guy who's got background with the quarterback, you have to think there's something there. And remember, like not only did Rick Dennison under Gary Kubiak coach Tyrod Taylor in Baltimore in 2014, he was also part of the group in Denver that tried to sign Tyrod Taylor in 2015, right? So if they didn't like him, they're not, sitting there in Denver the following March trying to figure out a way to get him on the roster to back up Peyton Manning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's absolutely a way where you can see the Bills holding on to Tyrod Taylor. Now the question, of course, becomes the price, because if they keep him on the roster, that activates a $27 million guarantee. And, the Bills' cap's been a little bit of a mess the last couple of years, so I would have told you a month ago that he was going to be gone from the Bills based on what I know, based on some of the trepidation that the front office has about him. But now with the hire of Rick Dennison as the offensive coordinator there, you could certainly see where it would make some sense for them to hold on to him while they look for a long-term answer at the quarterback position.
All right, we got some answers with some important, pertinent quarterback questions. Albert, good spot, buddy. Appreciate it, man. Have a good weekend.